Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is January the 16th, 2025, our second show of the year. Welcome to Scouching Live. Of course, I am the host, Will. I, of course, am joined by my wonderful producer, Mr. J.O.B. himself, A.J. Jadaro. How are you, sir?
Uh, Doing all right. Could,
Yeah.
could be a 4-game losing streak for the Leafs. It's only a 3. And I think they're still in first, so take
Right.
it.
Big picture. Yeah, big picture. Still in first. Cruising along.
Please don't
doing the thing.
please don't sign John. Please don't make me go through this again. Don't do it. Don't.
I won't. I don't know why you're telling me that.
I'm just putting it out in the ether, okay? I'm just putting it out in the ether.
I only have full control over the Dubai Mighty Camels, who are playing the Abu Dhabi Storms today. So good luck to them if the game's still going. I'm not sure. I don't even know. But yeah, that's all I care about. The Leafs, whatever. But anyway, we got a great show today. It's going to be a good time. I see my least favorite Pokemon is here, Whitney's Miltank, the worst experience of my life as a child. Today we're going to be talking a lot about the new lists that have come out. We're going to talk Central Scouting. People have been asking about Jackson LaCombe a few times, so we went and watched some of him, and we'll talk about him a little bit. Shout out Nintendo Switch. The sequel's coming out. They just put out the video today. I assume it's because they're so pissed off about all the leaks. They're just like, you know what? Here it is, and they just show a render of it. I don't know. I don't know if you're a big Switch guy, AJ, but I certainly am, and I'm very excited.
I'm not a big Switch guy because I don't like spending money, but that's just me.
Magnetic Joy-Cons, I think, are a game changer. That's going to be nice instead of sliding them on and off. That was a bit annoying, and it's bigger and better and all the good stuff. So I'm excited. But anyway, I also, if you can tell, I joined the future and got myself a 3D printer on the floor over there. I'm a big Magic the Gathering guy, so of course the first thing I really printed was a deck box. So it's like it's unbelievably perfect. It's just beautiful. So my life is forever changed now. So look forward to all kinds of stupid doodads probably that will help out with the show maybe one day. I don't know.
Just gonna print a bunch of bobbleheads of his favorite hockey players and put the desk behind him.
Now that is an idea. I like that idea. If you had a Mount Rushmore of hockey bobbleheads in your background, who would be on it?
Oh, that's not fair. Not a fair question to ask. I don't want to get roasted.
Well, everybody gets roasted all the time for everything.
It's going to be all Toronto Maple Leafs. That's all I care about, right?
So Thomas Coberley.
No, I'm talking about the greatest Toronto Maple Leafs of all time. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander. You know, the guys. Yeah, the guys that are playing now. I have to put Matt Sundin
and Lane Hudson.
I loved him.
You got to put Lane Hudson on there. At least Lane Hudson. You know, maybe Matvei Michkov. If you don't put Matvei Michkov, people will lose their minds probably. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, tune in to tomorrow's Calder Power Rankings to lose your mind because Will is still spoiler. Will still doesn't have Michkov at 1.
Yeah, because he just isn't. Yeah, no, he isn't. No, I don't think he should be. I think he could be a finalist very easily. Should be a finalist, but no, I don't think so. Speaking of which, yes, we're doing a Calder ballot, I guess you could say, tomorrow on the channel. Yeah, power rankings. So you can check that out tomorrow. We also did a game tape interview last night, and another one tonight is going to be happening. So look forward to those in the coming weeks. If you haven't seen it, check out the Gabe Perreault video room that came out yesterday. That was a lot of fun putting that together and all that good stuff. So if you're interested in watching some Gabe Perreault and seeing what some thoughts are on his performance, you can check that out over on the channel as well. Just, maybe after you watch this show. So I guess we can get into it a little bit here, enough with the preamble, so to speak, unless I'm missing anything.
Well, ad read very quickly.
Yeah, right. So of course, we're brought to you by Fanatics. You can use the link in the chat or scan the QR code or check the description. You'll give us a small kickback on anything you buy in the shop over there. So check that out. You can also help us out by getting a subscription to Puck Preps, where we're doing all kinds of NCAA and CHL draft coverage. Lots and lots of stuff going on over there as the seasons sort of come to a close. Well, we're getting there, but lots of stuff going on over there. And of course, you can give me a subscription over at Scouching.ca, where you will get access to our Discord server, which is tons of all kinds of fun stuff going on in there, as well as exclusive data tools you won't find anywhere else for drafted and undrafted prospects, and all kinds of things that are out there that you can check out on Scouching.ca at multiple tiers if you are on a specific budget. So you can check that out over at Scouching.ca. And again, if you're unaware, if you're new here, welcome to the show. But the back half is going to be our Q&A. So if you have any questions going on, definitely fire those off, and we'll get to them in the back half of the show. All right. So we're going to start today with Craig Button.
Gregory Button, as
Gregory Button.
Tony has lovingly called him, even though
Yep.
Craig asked him to not do that.
Yes.
Still does. Still responds to him. Thank you, Craig, for being a good dude.
Tony's one of those guys, you know, he'll say things and does not care what people think about it, which is, you know,
we need people like that to an extent.
Yes. But yeah, so Craig Button stuck out. He put out his most recent draft rankings. I believe this was 2 days ago. 2 days ago. So of course, immediately after we just did our last show with Tony on the show, where we could have discussed these things, everybody decided to put out more work in the last couple of days. But anyway, so Craig's list, I'll put it in the chat in case you haven't seen it, or if you want to follow along, I should say. I mean, look, again, no, there's going to be no disrespect to Craig Button here. He's the nicest guy in the world. I've met him a time or two, I believe, and he's been, you know, very cordial. He's a lovely dude. And I know he puts in the work on this. He, you know, is a very good broadcaster and all of that stuff. He's a good guy. So, I mean, anytime I sort of disagree with takes, like, I have my reasons. Yes.
What do you disagree with? Come on, Will.
Well, I mean, right off the top, I mean, the cojones to put Anton Frundell at 2 is strong. I don't know how, if I am a team that has the 5th overall pick and I have Michael Misa on the board, I am jumping for joy. I will jump until my kneecaps explode, because that just seems crazy to me. I think I mean, for me, he's number 2. Matt Schaefer at number 1. I think it's starting to become what people are thinking is going to be the case by the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if that remains the way that it is. I mean, he should be back. I believe I can't remember what they said his injury timeline was based on a broken collarbone, but I imagine he'll hit the ground running when he comes back, because a broken collarbone is one of the easiest bones to heal. It's not, I mean, it's obviously sucks to break a bone, but your collarbone is a pretty okay one to break if you're going to break one. But yeah, I mean, I think outside of the top 5, I mean, other than Anton Frundell at 2, I still am having a lot of trouble with Matthew Schaefer, or not Matthew Schaefer, sorry, Anton Frundell, and picking out what it is that he does, you know, that he brings to the game. Like, I'm not saying he's bad, but I've seen him a bunch of times this year, and I don't know what he is really. Like, I don't know what he's gonna be. Like, he's got a really good set of hands on him. He's got some good skill level, but, you know, he's not the quickest or most evasive guy in the world. He's a pretty smart player, but, like, he kind of reminds me of these, like, jack of all trades, master of none guys, but just hasn't. I still feel like he's still trying to get his footing after missing so much time over the last little while, but we'll see. I want to go back and watch another game of him. I watched him at the World Junior A final against the US team, and he was okay, I would say. He wasn't particularly exciting, but there was a couple of plays that were definitely impressive and notable.
What do you think exactly keeps him up at such a high spot?
I don't know. I mean, he's the only one, right, who has Frundell that high now. Like, if I go and look at my tracker here, I'm pretty sure he's the only one with Frundell that high. So I'm just going to look. Yeah, Frundell. So Frundell is, okay, so Chris Peters had him, but Chris Peters hasn't put out a list since June, so we'll ignore that. Has Bob McKenzie put out an updated list? I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm reading the article a bit.
Yeah.
And it says that Frundell reminds me of Barkov. What does Barkov do? Roll the game from center. From the center ice position, or from the center position on kind of work.
If I mean, if Frundell were bigger and like more, I don't know. That like I see where he's kind of coming from there based on what I've seen of Frondell, but I think Barkov just he brings a lot of everything to the game. Like he's not slow, he's very strong, really really skilled, and super super smart. Like his timing on everything is really really good. Frondell, I mean, maybe right. Like it's kind of like that Roger McQueen argument, right? Like if you think he could get there, I can't say that's not possible. I think that's also an extremely high bar. But Frondell, he's I'm going to need to take another look at him because it's been a little while. Um, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. Um, but anyway, for me, yeah, like basically for me, what I'm basically saying is like I still haven't really figured him out yet, and I'm definitely not willing, based on what I've seen, to say a name like Alex Barkov in the same
Mhm.
sentence. I just don't know. But outside of that is where things definitely get very interesting, and I mean, this draft I think opens up extremely quickly. And I think a list like Craig's is a really good example of how that's possible. I mean, like Caleb Desnoyers, I've been told by everyone and their dog at this point that I have Desnoyers too low on my list, but I don't know. I've probably seen him more than you have, and I don't know. I don't buy him as a top 10 guy this year outside of his production. Um, I mean, he's just a very smart 200-foot guy who has some room to fill out, I suppose, but I didn't really buy that as a super high end projectable guy. Like Cam Schmidt, he has at 7 still, and you know what? I respect it. I love the belief in Cameron Schmidt that's there from Button. It's always been there for him. I just think that Schmidt might be the boomer bust guy of the draft. Like unbelievable finishing ability, just really incredible wrist shot. It's just he is, to me, a little bit like Kaylor Yamamoto a little, right? Like I like Kaylor Yamamoto. I always have. I think there are universes where his career goes a little bit differently
Mhm.
in a positive way. But Yamamoto was always sort of a big swing, right? Like I don't think he was drafted by the right team. I don't think he was in the right system for what he was. But he is a player who is undersized, literally very, very small. You think he's 5'7", which Cameron Schmidt is as well. Really good finisher. He's not really much of the shooter that Cameron Schmidt is, but finisher for sure. High pace, high energy guy, willing to be physical, goes into the corners, does all those things which you want to see. I've seen that out of Schmidt as well. He's a rambunctious, emotional guy. I just think that the bar to move the needle in the NHL is going to be really high. And I mean, I've had this conversation with some people over the years as well about thinking about the draft rather than going for the best players and really looking at the details of like who drives results, who drives the bus in the right direction, but instead thinking about it like who can I recommend to an NHL head coach that will play the game and be playable, right? Like in the way that they're presented, right? Like if I look at Cameron Schmidt, like Kaylor Yamamoto for a while, he wasn't the most productive guy in the world, but as a bottom 6 role player, he actually drove decent results. But that's not the expectation, and the lack of size. There's this inherent, lack of okay, well, he's not going to be able to compete against bigger guys, and I feel like with Cameron Schmidt, that might be at work a little bit, with the shot selection problems. Like if he sorts that out, there's a lot of upside, I think. The intensity, the physicality, everything there, it's great. But is an NHL head coach going to believe it and like trust it enough to play him as much time as he needs to get those scoring chances he's going to play? I don't know the answer to that. I think it really depends on the coach. And frankly, I really disagree with that kind of thinking with regards to the draft. Um, but at the end of the day, I'm not the guy running the show. And I think at the end of the day as well, you think about the overall importance of the draft and scouting with regards to the big picture of an NHL organization as they are. It's pretty minor, right? Like it's relatively limited overall, right? Like most players don't make it. I mean, I think it's super important because it's the easiest way to make your team better long term. But regardless, I don't think it's a super high priority on the big grand scheme of things for teams long term, big picture, because your coach is the NHL coach. You need to win games. and they're going to be the ones who chooses who to play, right? So if they kind of go, well, who are you giving me? And you're not giving me what I want, then I'm not going to play them. So is Cameron Schmidt going to break that barrier, right? Is he going to be that guy that an NHL head coach goes, yes, thumbs up? It's going to be I think it's going to be very important to keep that in mind. So I have him a little lower, but that it's not because of that. It's just because for me, the way he plays, I just have questions, but he's still a first round pick to me. And I feel like he'll get drafted too late. Victor Eklund at 9 is a little surprising to me, especially considering a guy like Schmidt or Desnoyers is higher. I think Victor Eklund has shown nothing but extreme positives that I think you can bet on long term. Cam Reed at 10, I think is very optimistic. We talked about him on Monday quite positively about, I kind of put him out there in the same breath as like a Thomas Harley, where the defense might be a bit of an issue, but he can just wheel up, gallop. He gets a good head of steam going pretty quickly. He's a great puck carrier, good puck mover, really evasive in the offensive zone, just brings a lot of fun traits to the game. And if he goes that high, I get it. I totally see why. I have him a little lower, but I get it. I'm happy that Ben Kindle is getting some respect. He's at 13 on Button's list. And I mean, I have been Ben Kindle higher now. He's in my top 10. So I think there's a great hockey player there who is adjusting to the center position wonderfully, and I think just brings so much to the game that I love to see out of a player. Carter Bear at 15. I think all things considered, Carter Bear could be a fantastic NHL player. I really do think that that there's a lot in Carter Bear that projects really well in a way where, I think he's got a really good shot, a really good sort of sense of playmaking. He brings a lot of really good traits, but it doesn't like jump out at you, right? Like it's a lot of really hard earned points and production. And there's a lot of physicality in his game that I love to see. Like he's not reckless about it. He's tactical. He applies things really well. And I think that he's just going to project to the NHL really well. Like we were talking about him Monday night. And I talked about him in the same breath as a Porter Martone. I think that he's not as like flashy and high end, but I do think there's a lot of physicality sort of parallels, and the pace of his game I think is a little bit stronger, but we'll see.
You know what's awesome about Carter Bear?
What?
Spoiler alert, the game tape interview we did last night was with Carter Bear.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
whoa.
We have that in the works, okay? That guy wants to get faster. He wants to be more intense.
Which is crazy.
It's awesome. And also, got one of the deepest voices I've ever heard, and it's sick. And somehow he gets chirped for it, and I think it's because everybody's jealous of how awesome his voice is. So I wanted to throw that out there. He's a really great kid. And yeah. I will add my 2 cents and get out of this. So you continue, Will.
I will also mention that while we've been speaking, Stephen Ellis put out his draft list. So I haven't seen that yet, but it just came out literally like 2 minutes ago.
Oh, awesome. Guess we'll have to have him on.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, they're outside of that. Like, I mean, Jack Nesbitt in the first round, Eddie Genborg in the first round. To me, that to me is like an NHL coach will play these guys. Like I don't really see much in Nesbitt, to be honest. Like I've seen him a bunch of times. He's big and good with the puck on his stick in terms of resilience, and there's a bit of skill there as well, but first round seems a little rich to me. I still don't have a really good read on him, but whenever I've seen him, it's usually because people are talking about him very favorably, and then I go and watch him. And relative to all the other guys I've seen this year, especially sort of these bigger guys, I don't really see how he's this high. Same goes for Genborg. Like I think Genborg might struggle to project to really high levels because I think that the physicality is there, but the pace of his game isn't amazing. But he's a very straightforward, basic player. Like he goes to the net, he plays that projectable style. So if things can improve, I think there might be something there. First round, I mean, if you want to take a Genborg in the late first round, early second round, like because you think he's going to be a complementary physical forward for you, then fine. I get it. I just think you could aim a little higher and maybe get something that's a little bit more impactful. Lyndon Lakovic at 29 kind of surprises me. I'm not sure what that's all about, so I'd be curious why that is. I don't think he mentions it in the post. Because I think Lakovic brings a lot to the game that projects well. He's not. I get maybe it's that he's tall and not super physical. Like he's not. That's not really his game. He's more of a finesse, finisher guy who is just a smooth skater and gets around well. And maybe there's a concern that he's not physical enough to play in the NHL. I don't know. But I like him. Eric Nilsson in the first round. I mean, I hope selfishly, I hope that the Eric Nilsson hype train stays sort of in the station because, for my purposes of team scouting and everything, like if he's there late second round, um, I would love to pick him up and add him to the stock, because outside of him and a few other guys that might be available in that range, I'm not super thrilled about the selection, and you may as well just trade it and get 5 fifth-round picks instead and see who's available. But yeah, so that's the first round for me. I mean, Blake Fiddler outside the first round is a bit of a surprise, especially considering who he did put in the first round, like Charlie Trethewey, Logan Hensler. Like I feel like Blake Fiddler brings to me better defensive tools, like projectable better defensive tools than a guy like Kashan Aitchison does. But Aitchison brings that like intensity and that psychological warfare style of play that I think some people value more than I do. But I see the appeal. I get it. But I think
Great
Fiddler
dude.
just
John
yeah.
Aitchison,
I mean,
great dude.
totally. Definitely. I think with Fiddler, especially more than 20 spots lower, is a little bit of an overcorrection. Respect also, while we move on here, Thomas Galvis, 41 for Craig Button. Respect. I love Thomas Galvis. I thought he was great at the World Junior for the Czech team. A guy like Thomas Galvis on Canada would have been awesome. But they really only had like
Toronto,
Tanner Moldijk.
Canada, is there much of a difference?
Toronto's basically Canada, right? And there's nowhere else in Canada than Toronto, basically.
Not that
right?
matters, really. Love you all. Had to do it. Make you mad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like Cullen Potter at 56, like fine. I disagree strongly, but hey, if Cullen Potter is on Team Scouching because he's there at 60 or whatever, I will not complain. I would be very, very pleased about that. Especially since he's behind guys like, I don't know, Jacob Wozniak, Ethan Zada, Maxim Agafonov, even a Theo Stixelius, who I was very complimentary of, is ahead of Cullen Potter, and I don't. Okay. But anyway, I mean, that kind of wraps it up, I guess. Like Zach Morin was a weird one to see in there.
I'll ask one. Braden Coots.
Yep. I mean, Braden Coots is not 6'3". Is he? He's listed at 6'3" on Craig's list. Let's see. In reality, I feel like he's like 6 feet. Because if he's 6'3", yeah, he's 6 feet.
But he's not 6'3", 201 pounds, Will. That's what it has here.
I don't know who that is instead, but Coots, I really like him. I think he's the type of guy that can play. I could see him playing anywhere in an NHL lineup up the middle, right? Like he's not the most physical guy in the world, but in my world, like on my team, he's very, very smart defensively, and I think he uses his quickness really well to sort of check guys and jump into defensive play and everything. Like I think he does that really well, and he takes off like a shot. He's got skill. I think if he can sort of work give and goes a little bit more, and I think he needs a little bit of refinement coaching wise over the next little while to become more of a dominant offensive player. But if that doesn't happen, though, I think he could still end up like a good third line guy. Like I feel like as a guy who can receive passes in the defensive end or create turnovers in the defensive end, quickly generate breakouts, quickly get the puck up the ice, and just participate in offensive play here and there. I mean, I don't think you could go wrong with a guy like Coots, especially considering some of the guys like ahead of him, like Nathan Beam and Zach Morin, even Luca Romano. Like I like Luca Romano quite a bit, but I'm going with Coots for me just because of the speed of his game, the pace of his play, the skill level. I think there's a lot to dig into there on that. I don't know. Anything else jumping out? I don't see anything else really that I
Not really.
I'm cut up about. Simon Wang's on here. That's fun.
That was the last. I just saw that. I was just about to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Bill Zonin at 25?
I dig it. I have Zonin higher, but I dig it. Like the thing about Zonin is like if you have a guy like Nesbitt at 17 or Genborg at 22, like I think Bill Zonin has a much higher pace of play than those guys. I think he has a much higher, like he's played center as well this season, every game I've seen him. So I don't know if that's a new thing for Zonin. Like he's listed as a right winger here, and I believe he's listed as a right winger on Elite Prospects and everything, but he's been playing center. And I think that's where he kind of belongs. Like he has that up and down the ice ability. I think he works give and goes really, really well. He times his play really well. Like his skating stride's a little weird, but he tries his heart out. You can't fault his trying to get around the ice, and he's effective. So for me, I look at him and I go, well, him and even a Jake O'Brien, like behind guys like Genborg and Nesbitt and even Brady Martin, to me, I don't know. I think I would put my money on Zonin because again, you're thinking the NHL, right? The NHL is fast. Things happen quickly. You need guys who can make decisions quickly. I think he is that. And off the puck, I think he gives you more than enough to make something work somewhere in an NHL lineup. Whereas with guys like Nesbitt and maybe Genborg and Martin, like I feel like there's a bit more of a question mark around those guys. All right, let's pivot over. Let's pivot to Central Scouting because this was delicious. This was delicious. So what I've been doing, what?
Oh, this is gonna be a fun one because I asked the question to Will beforehand.
Yes.
I said, "Who even runs Central Scouting?" And so we went and we took a look.
We went and looked.
To put our investigative hats on, our Sherlock Holmes hat on. And what did we find, Will?
So just for background, and there's going to be no takes here. It's only going to be for you guys to ingest and take for what you will. The guy who is the director of Central Scouting is Dan Marr. Dan Marr was a scout for the Toronto Maple Leafs between 89 and 95, then got promoted to scouting coordinator until 98. Then he was the director of scouting for the Atlanta Thrashers throughout their entire history, basically. He became director of player development in 2007, but before that point, he was director of scouting, amateur scouting especially, for all of those years with Atlanta. So you can look at their draft history. There are some good ones in there, but not all of them are hits, let's say. His assistant, I believe, seems to be David Gregory, who I can't find any information about, really. He seems to be more on the business side of things. I don't really understand. He was a franchise owner and general manager in the 90s of an AHL team, but I don't know where and his dad was Jim Gregory, who was with the Leafs for forever back in the day in the 60s and 70s. But
as a GM, correct?
Yeah. And then he worked for the NHL for the rest of his life, like through the 80s, 90s, 2000s, like I think right up until he died. But anyway, so that's kind of what we're dealing with there. The European director of scouting is Jukka-Pekka Vuorinen, who, from what I can tell, has only been really scouting since 2021, but he was the CEO of Liga in 2007 through 2013. He was the director of a team in Italy for one season. So not a whole lot of real on paper experience, but I mean, maybe just being a director is more of an administrative role. I don't know. But the point is, like, that's the background we're dealing with here for these guys, and they have a bunch of scouts who go out and do their thing. So I think it's important to know who's sort of behind these things and what their history is like. Because you can look at Central Scouting's list, and I think you can pick through a lot of stuff that is strange. So I took the time as well during this week, over the last couple of days. I basically sort of looked at history in the draft and relative to Central Scouting rankings and like who gets drafted where and in what rounds and all of that stuff. And so what I did was I basically looked and said, okay, like who is going to get, what estimated round could these guys go in? And for some reason, all of my data is not there right now. And so like generally like 6 out of every 10 picks on average are North Americans. 4 out of every 10 are Europeans, and you get a goalie sprinkled about, I don't know, 1, maybe 0.7 per round, a goalie on average. So you can kind of project ish what round or who might go undrafted. And so just sorting by that, like you're looking at guys like Joshua Ravensbergen being a first rounder, Yves Wozniak. I mean, Eric Nilsson, you apparently seems to be 6th in Europe. I mean, that I was pleasantly surprised by that, but I'm not, I'm trying to keep that one a little more quiet because I like him and I like the stock, and let's be quiet. But anyway, the actual list. So yeah, I mean,
seem speechless.
we've talked about Caleb Desnoyers to death. Radim Mertka that high at 6 in North America is optimistic, but I guess I see it. He's big and mobile. Seeing Ben Kindle at 20 makes me sad, especially behind guys like Nesbitt and Brushevitz. But to me, that's like Kindle's just not big. It's like Kindle, Coots, and Potter at 20, 21, and 22 to me, all being under 6 feet, when literally every single player ahead of them, except James Haggins, is listed at 6 foot or bigger, to me goes, okay, now we can start thinking about the smaller guys that we have doubts about, right? Like, and it's just like, let's go for the guys that we like the most. And then it's Simon Wang and Blake Fiddler. So it's like they're sandwiched between some gigantic slices of bread. So there's that. Cameron Reed behind Peyton Kettles as well. Like Peyton Kettles, I've seen him a few times this year. It's like you're drafting him and sort of, it's like you're Homer Simpson, right? You're kind of closing your eyes and hitting the button on the console to stop a nuclear meltdown, right? Like it's like you are hoping that he develops a lot, right? He's 6'5", he's an okay skater, but I don't really know what he brings to the game as he is now. Like, he's not a very productive player. He isn't necessarily a puck mover, I would say. He's not the most physical guy either, but he's only 190 pounds for a 6'5" guy, which there's a lot of headroom there to develop. But I mean, if you're passing on a guy like Cam Reed or Bill Zonin or Cameron Schmidt or even a guy for me like Cole McKinney, who I've recently liked a lot, Cole Reshney, Shane Van Saggy, especially Van Saggy. I feel like Van Saggy should be higher on this list because of how CSS kind of sees things. But yeah, I mean, like but the other thing too about this draft class is I think when you scroll down a little bit, you realize like pretty much just how thin this class is. Adam Banak being at 60 in North America, that generally implies like, where is he? Like a 3rd round pick, which coming into this season, if you suggested Adam Banak as a 3rd round pick, I think people would laugh at you. And I feel like if he goes in the 3rd round, that's still too low. But he has not been the dominant player in the USHL people really, really want. Where like he's just been a little bit underwhelming. But the thing is, like, I find on lists like this a lot of the time, there's just like overcorrections on stuff like this, right? Like Adam Banak, internationally at least, has been spectacular and is a point a game in the USHL, which is not a joke. But I've seen Maceo Phillips a bunch of times, and Maceo Phillips is 14 slots ahead, or 11, sorry, and I don't see it with him. I don't get it. Václav Nestrasil is 6'5", and I've seen him a bunch of times, and I like him too. Like, he's on my list. He's I believe in my 2nd or 3rd round, but relative to a guy like Adam Banak, like, it's literally only to me, like, the only thing is like he's gonna get pushed around in the NHL, and a guy like Nestrasil won't. But I still feel like there's a lot of room for Nestrasil as an example to develop quite a bit, because I think that's what he'll need to do. But like, I mean, Adam Banak next door to Emil Guite seems like, it just seems like you kind of made the decision that Banak is just not going to make it. And so you're going, well, if he does, I guess you take a swing on him after a guy like Nathan Quinn is off the board, which I don't know. It just, like, the logic doesn't really logic to me all that much. Um, Other than that, I mean, there isn't like,
See that I think you've talked about Lev Katzen. I see him at
yeah,
107.
that doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Like that one, I sort of look at and I go, yeah, like he's a long shot. I think I know
Hmm?
he's scoring points, but I think he's a long shot. You need to be the bar for guys like him is extremely high, and I feel like he's not quite there. It's kind of like the Cameron Schmidt thing, but dialed down. And
Right.
I'm going, well, when do you take the jump on that? Someone I saw also mentions LJ Mooney. I'm not surprised at all. LJ Mooney is back that far. He has not been very good this season when I've seen him. He is a player who is the epitome of like boom or bust. Um, I mean, frankly, I mean, on paper, yes, he is too low because would I take him over a guy who's like under a point a game in a high school in New York? Probably. I would take the guy who went to the U18s last year and played with James Haggins and didn't look out of place there. I probably would draft him first. Like Anthony Cristoforo is ranked ahead of him, a re-entry from last year who hasn't been amazing this year either. Um, like again, it's like an overcorrection, right? It's like a we're done with this guy, so let's whatever. But I mean, there might also be genuine concern about his ability to get fully healthy from the injury that he sustained, and he wasn't amazing when I saw him in person. And I think the last game I saw of the NTDP, he looked pretty good. Like he looks like he's getting a little bit better. I don't know. I 208, yeah, it's too low, but I'm not really surprised because
Oh, he's that low. Okay.
yeah, he's in the 200s. He's one of the last guys on the list. But again, it's like if you just don't think that the small skilled guy is going to work in the NHL and he's never going to be a third line or fourth line guy, which I agree, then why bother?
Hmm?
But I also look at the guys ahead of him and I go, right, but I'm not sure these guys you could even make the argument that they'll make the NHL. Like they'd be like all these guys, I feel like just have the same chance as anyone else to make it. It's not impossible, but it just seems that way. Um, but yeah, I mean, in North America though, I think that just about covers it.
Quickly
Like,
before you,
yeah, yeah.
who were some of the guys you had to watch as a result of
Oh,
put out?
yeah. I had a list. I actually did bang through a bunch of them. I wonder if it's still there. Yeah, so it is. So I looked at the highest ranked guy that I didn't have in my tracker that I looked at was Noah Jenkin. I actually have seen Noah Jenkin. I think he's fine. I need to take a closer look at him. My access to CHL tape is a little bit limited right now, but anyway, I like Gavin Garland. Gavin Garland is ranked on their list. I've liked him, but that's he's another small guy who I look at and I go, I don't know if it's like enough, but he's ranked 100 spots ahead of a guy like LJ Mooney, and he's a re-entry. Gavin Garland is a +1. I don't know, but I like him. I think he's a decent player. Um, but like nobody that I had never seen before really stuck out. František Netisil, I thought looks pretty good in the game that I watched of him. I watched like half of a game of him, and I went, yeah, he's solid. I'll check in on him later. Um, Noah Reed is okay with the London Knights. I think he's an okay player that could get a draft pick. You and Evan Van Gorp as well, like a re-entry that maybe late a team swings on, but re-entry CHL guys, you get 1 year with them, maybe. That just and you have to make the decision on AHL or not, and maybe they go for an overage year, but I don't know. Um, but yeah, I mean, in North America, I did see a bunch of these guys that weren't on my tracker yet, and I didn't think many of them were like huge misses on my part to not even have on the thing. Um, I guess we can switch over to Europe
Yep.
though, because yeah, like I might flip around a few of the names here and there, and I think there are some guys that are undervalued in North America, but it's just I'm not. Some of it doesn't surprise me, and some of it also surprises me, which is weird. I don't know. Okay, those are goalies. I don't. Who cares about goalies, right?
Than
So
David
Europe,
Phillips.
who's that? I don't know who that is.
Locked him
I
out.
mean, Europe, it. I mean, yeah, Europe does kind of drop off real quick this year. This year is very much a North American dominated season. So for the record, uh, Europe's list is Victor Eklund, Anton Frundell, Ivan Ryabkin still at 3 is wild to me, but we'll see.
It's also
Uh,
technically not a
right.
North American.
Yeah, he'll be on the North America list at the end of the year now, yeah. Milton Yastrin at 4, Wojtek Cichosz at 5, Eric Nielsen at 6. God damn it. Jacobies Wozniak at 7, Max Psenichka. That one surprises me, but I came into the season liking Psenichka, but I watched him in the Czech League a couple of games and thought he was not very good. But again, Peyton Kettles, 6'5", 160 pounds. Who knows what he could be? Max Psenichka, 6'4", 175 pounds. Who knows what he could be, right? Like, it's that vibe. Dmitry Isayev at 9 is pretty crazy to me. Like, he's a fun player. Like, he's very, very skilled. But again, like, I'm not sure why they're optimistic about him and not optimistic about some of the other guys, and like why they're more optimistic about Isayev when they have guys like Stuxelius and Politin and Genborg, who I think are much more projectable, but who knows? Alex Mishak, I like his brother. We all know that I like Martin. Alex is okay, but guys like Kurban Limatov, I've liked. David Roosevelt, I've recently come across and I've liked.
What I've realized,
Roman Bout. Yeah, what up?
There's a guy, there's Bowman on this list on the page. But
yes,
it's not Ivan.
It is Makar.
Makar
Foman. Yeah, so he's playing in the KHL largely. Small and mobile. He's a small defenseman who gets around really well. I actually have to go take a look at him. It's been a long time since I've seen him, but I don't know. I think it's kind of reasonable to have him where he is. But I mean, just for the record, my top 10 Europeans would have been Eklund, Nilsson, Frundell, Drott. Drott is at
43.
Then Lindgren, Hillstrom. Wow, a lot of Swedes. Yastrin, Nikita Poltavchuk, who I really love, and he wasn't even ranked on their list. But Poltavchuk just doesn't play Central Scouting style of play. He's a guy who will jump into the rush. He'll jump into the offensive zone. He'll try to generate offense, and he doesn't score a ton of points so far this year. But I love him. I think there's a lot of upside with him. And then Michael Sverchek, who I think was ranked on their list. Let's see. Yeah, he was 69th in Europe. I think that's way too low for Michael Sverchek. And then Kurban Limatov and Ivan Fomin are the other guys that I really love. That Fomin obviously wasn't ranked on their list because he's tiny and ridiculous and whatever. But Limatov is a nice blank slate to work with. But yeah, I mean, for me, Europe drops off pretty quick. I like the Swedes this year. Gustav Hillstrom is one that I've really liked recently. So to see him at 40 on their list seems a little low. Like seeing Artem Vilchinski next to Arvid Drott, I don't like that really because I've seen a lot of Vilchinski and that just kind of blows my mind.
They do have Danil Ustinkov on this list.
They do.
And Tomas Galvis at 80.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So we'll see what happens. I will say, I do love that they put, what's his name? The last guy on Europe's list, Jeremiah Mundi. I actually saw this guy over the holidays, watching him play in an international tournament against Slovakia, I believe was the game I saw. That kid can rip it. He's a pretty quick guy too. I don't know if he's like a very, the hockey side of it is a little bit of a question mark, but that's a guy who he's big and he skates well. He shoots the puck insanely well. So that caught my curiosity. And so I wanted to circle back on him at some point. What's his name? The Italian guy, Tommaso De Luca's brother is in this draft, Jacopo. And I went and watched some of him because I didn't have him in the tracker yet. And he was actually kind of good. Like he was kind of interesting. He's playing on a team that isn't very good, and he's pretty productive on a junior team in what's it called? In Switzerland. And like, just to put that in perspective, so Jeremiah Mundi plays in the second in that division as well, the European or the Swiss Junior League, plays for Davos, and Jacopo De Luca also plays in Switzerland for Ambri Piotta, which I believe is the team that's in the Italian region of, which makes sense because he's Italian, of Switzerland. They have De Luca has 5 more points this year than Mundi, but his involvement percentage is over twice as high. So this is why I track these things, because you can look at 2 guys who have similar levels of production, but one guy is involved in their team's offense twice as often as the other. But I liked both of them. Who else was on this list that I haven't seen? I mean, the French guy, Noah Nasonsa Catala. I saw him at the international tournament recently. and he was okay. But then I went and watched him in the French Pro League, and I don't know. If you're not Alex Texier in that league, it's hard. It's hard to like he wasn't really pushing the pace of the game very much. He was kind of just one of the boys in that league, which is not quite good enough. But yeah, other than that, no, nobody in Europe really blew my mind that I felt needed to be on there. I did like DeLuca and Mundi for sure. Those are two guys that I might circle back on before the end of the year. Um, but in Europe, like I do think it drops off relatively quickly. And like the bar in this year's draft for me, and I talk about this all the time, but there's a bar at a certain point where you go, you just take who you like, like guys, there are guys who play a style of play that I like, that I think are worth betting on, and long term you might end up with a player like in my world. But if you disagree with me and have a different philosophy and you like other types of players and you have a different type of system you want to play, then I could see that people could have reasonable disagreements. So for me, like that number is around like 20-ish, 25. And past that, I kind of just go, I don't know. Like, I like Cameron Schmidt, and if he's there, I take the swing. But if he's gone and you're the 35th pick overall, like I like Will Bell. Will Bell was 40 or was 89th in North America, but I think he could be a bottom six forward in the NHL, just an energetic, physical guy. And there are moments of skill that are really impressive. I really like Hillstrom. Harry Nancy was 116th in North America, but I do really think that the skill level and the upside is there. Like I just tracked a game of him because I saw him at 116 in North America, and I went, okay, I need to double check that I'm not totally out to lunch on this guy. I tracked a game of his. I mean, I feel like if he's not playing on Owen Sound, he's much higher on people's boards. Like they're not very good. And any offense that was being generated with him on the ice, like he was involved in it, like a lot of the time. So, and he plays a physical, aggressive game that I think if he can just get a bit quicker over the years, I think there's a lot of headroom there. He's also very, very young. Like he's one of the youngest guys in the draft. So that all adds up to me. Like this is a draft very quickly for me. Like if I'm looking at my short list of potential names, we'll just run through it real quick because I think we're done with the European list
Mhm.
and goalies. Like whatever. I mean, I don't know much about goalies, but I mean, Alexei Medvedev at 2, sure. I don't know. I guess and
That's
Jack
David
Ivankovic.
Phillips.
Yeah, David Phillips. Yeah, I mean, maybe we should have David Phillips do a guest spot again on the site because he's good with goalies.
Or
But I
even on the
mean,
show. Maybe we have him
yeah,
on
true,
and you guys can ask your goalie question.
exactly. But yeah, I mean, like Jack Ivankovic, I feel like if he were 2 inches taller, he'd be probably number 2 on this list, but he's not, so he's at number 5, which I think is a little bit of an overcorrection. Leonards Feldbergs, hero of Latvia, the guy that they're probably going to have a holiday named after one day, at 20 in North America for goalies. I like Cam Hendrickson. The fact that he's at 29 kind of surprised me, but I like him. Internationally, I like Kirkola a little bit. He's pretty good. Petteri Rimpinen at 4. There you go. There's your recency bias going on there, but he's been very good this year. I shouldn't be that dismissive. Andrianov though is my guy this year. Like if Eric Nilsson, so that's a good segue into the short list here. But to introduce it, so what I do is, if you're not familiar, team scouting, I use Toronto's draft picks and basically put my name next to a guy at each pick and then track it over the years and see how it goes. So for me, number one is Eric Nilsson. If he's not there in the second round when Toronto picks, I'd go Andrianov. I think he's a great goaltender, and I need a goalie. Honestly, I don't have one, and in the late second round, I'd take a swing on a goalie, sure. Arvid Drott, if Adrianov is gone, Arvid Drott, based on the math, looks like a guy who will probably be there. If he's not there, I would go Milton Yastrzyn, but Yastrzyn is also a guy who's probably going to be gone. And Zeb Lindgren's the fifth one there. Third round, you've got, to me, it's unlikely, but maybe Theos Stexelius, but the likely one is Will Bell, maybe Gustav Hillstrom as well. Riker Lee is another one I have penciled in here that might be a stretch for the third round, but it's possible. And Melvin Novotny, Tony's boy. I actually have him on the short list as a third round pick, and my data indicates around a fourth rounder right now. In the fifth round, I've got Sverchek, Nancy, Anthony Alain Samake, who might be a stretch for the fifth round. Ivan Fomin is in there, and Luke Mistelbacher, actually a re-entry from Swift Current, who I've actually really loved watching this season when I've seen Swift Current. And he's actually on Central Scouting's list at 72, so he might be gone by the 5th round, but he's an option. For me in the 6th round, then you've got Beauchene, Quinn Beauchene, Tinas Koblar, who again, Tinas Koblar unranked on Central Scouting's list when I feel like he would be the guy to get a swing late because he's big and skates really well and has some good skill, but is quite unrefined right now. But I think he's a really the total package that I would want playing up the middle of the ice, but such is life. But he's in there as well. They didn't have Poltavchuk ranked either. Rocky Langvard is in my 7th round on the short list, and he's another one. I just took another look at him because he wasn't ranked on Central Scouting's list. But again, he's 5'10 as a defenseman and a more physical leaning guy. So they must look at that and go, it's not going to work. But I think he could make it work. I think he's a good player. LJ Mooney is also on the short list for the 6th round. Actually, according to the data, it looks like he could go undrafted, but that is very heavily weighted by Central Scouting. But yeah, there's a lot. I think this is a year where, for me at least, like if Nilsson and Andrianov are gone by round 2, I would probably think about adding more picks. I would just go, yeah, like maybe I could add a 3rd and a 4th, or a 2nd next year, or a 3rd and whatever. Like I don't really know. I feel like this draft is going to drop off relatively quickly, and then it'll become volume over everything pretty quick. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting.
Like always.
Yes, Carolina will draft all of these players. But yeah, what else is going on here?
I think
yeah.
Now go to final topic of the
pivot.
Yes. Let's go to Jackson LaCombe. Yes.
Jackson LaCombe. So we got asked about him a lot. And so we went and looked. It was a couple of shows in a row. People were asking about Jackson LaCombe. So we went and looked. He's having a good season with Anaheim. He's playing a lot of minutes. I've been talking a lot. So why don't you take it away for this one, and I can go into more detail maybe.
Sure. So he's partnered with Radko Gudas, Giant Garden Gnome, and looks good. Here's my barometer. Would I play him on the Leafs over Simon Benoit? Yes. Okay, so he's good. But like, actually, when it comes to actually analyzing him, I really like how he jumped up into the play because they just let him do it. Feels like they're confident in Radko Gudas to shut down everything else. He jumped in, created some stuff. I just thought he was solid. Like, there's not a ton I've got to say on Jackson LaCombe, but I think he's just very adequate, play well enough.
Yeah, I mean, I actually was more impressed than I thought I was going to be with him. I mean, I've been watching him for off and on for years. And I remember him with Shattuck and going, okay, yeah, like there's a skilled and pretty mobile guy here, really confident offensive player. And I think he's kind of found a nice balance in the NHL. Like if you look at his heat map of shots against, like Radko Gudas on the right side is way leakier than LaCombe is on the left side. And I found LaCombe was making some good stops. I think the physical battles he was losing more than he won. I think that the better players on the opposing team, I think they had a much easier time getting around him. Like the skill level, keeping up with that, and the speed of faster players was a little bit of a challenge for him. But I do think that he is just rock solid. Like he seems to me to be a guy that it's like, maybe not a top pair guy on a contending team, but a number 4 who can play on your secondary power play, a number 3 who just plays a solid 200-foot game, like a 65-35 lean offensive type guy, maybe 60-40. He can push play up the ice pretty well, but he's not so overconfident with the puck that he's carrying. But he's a guy who knows when to move the puck through his passing. He clearly was making good plays much more often. So I think at the end of the day, LaCombe looks rock solid. Like he he just read the game really well. He was anticipating defensive opportunities really well and just getting involved, getting sticks in the lanes, doing what you need to do to play solid defensive minutes in the NHL with some offensive ability as well. Just those quarterbacking of rushes, jumping into the offensive zone and trying to make stuff happen without being that like who in the NHL is just sort of an all-out offensive zone. I'm going to play below the goal line style defenseman, right? Like he's not that, but he does a pretty good job. He does a pretty good job of just eating minutes and leaning a little bit offensively. And with Radko Gudas insulating him, even though Gudas's results aren't as good, I think it's a fine pair for now. Maybe not a good long-term solution for your top pair, but solid. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you have anything else? There wasn't like a tremendous amount to write home about with him, but he looks rock solid. And I think that's a good thing, like a rock solid defenseman who has a bit of offensive tools is not a bad thing.
On the younger side of things as well, and fits the timeline of Anaheim. So yeah, I think he's good.
Yeah, he's 24,
he's right. Not a player that I'm gonna wax poetic about that much. Just good.
Yeah, like he's fine. He's fine. Like the way it was portrayed to me by a couple of people was like he's like a game changer or whatever, and he's having like an amazing season. Which
when you're in Anaheim and that's your barometer when you look at the players around him, you can see where that opinion comes from. Sorry, Anaheim Ducks fan.
Entirely possible. Well, yeah, I mean they're not having the best time.
Detroit Terry
for
rocks.
a 24-year-old guy.
That's what I took away from that.
A 24-year-old doing his thing, all around solid defenseman with some offensive pop. Sure, cool. Fine. I guess we can get to questions. Sure. Like we're almost at the halfway point of the show. But again, we are of course presented by Fanatics. You can use our link in the description. Where we'll get a small kickback on anything you buy in the shop. You can also scan the QR code in the video window, and you can also help us out that way. We also Puck Preps helps us out as well. You can check out puckpreps.com, get a subscription where you'll get access to all kinds of NCAA and CHL draft insights, especially with all of the changes going on with the CHL players going to the NCAA. If you want to get your fix on that side of the thing, you can check it out over there. And of course, Scouching.ca, where a subscription will get you access to our Discord server, as well as plenty of other cool data tools and visualization tools for the draft and drafted prospects and all kinds of stuff going on that you won't find anywhere else. So again, it's a Q&A for the back half of the show. So you can pop in your questions and we'll try to get to them as much as we can by the end of the program. Okay, well, that should have happened. All right, let's go. Let's do this.
Also, I want to point out our Nightbot seems a little sensitive to caps, which is kind of funny because the comment it deleted was "Go Mighty Camels" in all caps. We support that message.
We support that message.
Bad Nightbot. Bad Nightbot.
Yeah, exactly. Can I show the message anyway? No, doesn't look like it.
Oh, we'll have to fix that.
Go Camels. Go Mighty Camels, go. I love that jersey so much. It's so nice.
I know you
Anyway, I didn't know Anthony Alain Samaké made the All-American game. Oh, I didn't know that was... I didn't know the rosters were out for that. The USA Hockey All-American game is... Oh, it's today. Whoops. Shows what I know. Okay. Well, that is interesting. Ugh, I can't open both rosters just by middle clicking. Well, I'll have to take a look and watch that game because I did not know that was happening. I don't know. That's what you get for not using Twitter very much. But Will's yeah, I mean, good for Alain Samaké. He should be there.
Will is a blue sky glaze.
Yes, that, but also 2025, me trying not to use so much social media. It's just no. Be more social, less social media. He says from his basement that he never leaves. Okay. Thoughts on how Mertka, Smith, and Hensler were ranked? I'm assuming that means Central Scouting. I mean, Mertka is high, but I kind of get it. Again, if you think about it from a developmental standpoint, for sure, I get it. As I try to find where it is. Smith was a little surprising. I thought Jackson Smith, I mean, I guess the argument is that the hockey sense is still a bit of an issue, but I would disagree with that. I feel like he deserves a good slot, and being at 9, mid first round pick. I mean, I guess I see why, but I feel like an NHL team's going to jump on him sooner than that. And Hensler, I mean, I'm a little lower on Hensler than they are, I believe. If I can find where he is, there he is. Yeah, 17 in North America. I have him in the early 40s, maybe late 30s, which I think sounds a little reasonable. And so him being a early second round pick, a little higher than I might take him. I see why. I think it's fair. I think it's reasonable. Um, since when is this hosted by Oscar Piastri? I mean, I wish I was Oscar Piastri, but unfortunately, I'm not. I don't have nearly a cool enough accent. And when I went to a Formula One simulator that's down the road from me, I almost broke it from crashing so much. So don't put me in a Formula One car. People. Oh God. Speaking of people losing their minds, are we going to talk about Corey Pronman's under 23 list from a few days ago? Not strictly prospect talk, but oh my. Okay, so yeah, there's been a lot of talk about this. I actually had a couple of NHL people message me a link to this and go, "What?" Um, but where is it? Let me see if I can find it here. Under 20, is this it? No, this isn't it. Oh, here it is. Ranking the top NHL players and prospects under 23. I mean, look, I don't know how to sugarcoat it. To me, this is nonsense. Like there's just a lot you can pick through here and go, I don't know about that, son. Like I'm just scrolling through it.
Hmm?
Like,
hey, but he's got Logan
Matthew
Cooley
Michkov,
ahead of Yuri Slavkovsky. W.
Matthew Michkov over Lucas Raymond, I think. Like
That's
Lucas
nuts.
Raymond is astounding. And Jake Sanders, like Zeev Buyum ahead of Lucas Raymond. Like, let's calm down a little bit here.
Hmm?
Sam Dickinson over Ivan Demidov, but Ivan Demidov over Matthew Beniers. And like Beniers, Power, Byfield, Catton, Seneca, Levshinov, Faber. I don't know what Brock Faber is doing at 23 behind Quentin Byfield, Owen Power. Like the guy could have, like he could be a Norris Trophy winner at some point. Like,
well, Lane Hutson's at 39.
Yeah, like Shane Wright ahead of Logan Stankoven and William Eklund. Like I love Shane Wright, but like Matthew Nyes at 32 with Salayev at 31 and Daniil Butt at 33. Like I like Matthew Nyes. Like it's literally like you're just kind of blending names. Like I just don't really get it. And look, I'll say this, right? Like I spend literally all day, every day of my life watching hockey games, right? Of just the draft class generally. Maybe not always, but generally it's the draft class. And I would say that in terms of like actually having reasonable, confident analysis about a player, I would say there are maybe 100, maybe 110 ish that I could actually by June go, yeah, we can have a discussion about this player. And I'm confident and I know what I'm talking about. And I've zeroed in on this group of 80 to 110 that I really want to focus on. That's my approach, right? So, and I do this all day, every day from my office. Like I'm watching 5-6 games a day, not today, but most days. So the idea that like people are capable of having a functional knowledge of how many guys are on this list, like 139 players
Oh my.
that are all, like I guess what I'm saying is like you can't really take this very seriously. Not only is it impossible to do correctly, like it's just not physically possible.
No, Will, they put Brad Lambert at.
Well, yeah, because he sucks. He doesn't have any points this year. Do you know, like what do you want? No. But like Adam Kleber over Gabe Perreault is at 126. like Wojtek Hradec ahead of Gabe Perreault,
Zach Benson's at 83.
Jet Luchenko at 110 ahead of Fraser Minton, and behind like it you know, I don't know, like Emil Pinieniemi at 97 ahead of Easton Cowan is literally like you watched maybe 2 games at the World Juniors and saw Pinieniemi score a nice goal and Easton Cowan lost. Like I just don't get it.
Sure, Red Wings fans are going to have a
I
field
also
day
feel
with
like
ASP at 45.
sure, and I feel like there's almost no point because this is definitely a thing that comes from the top at the Athletic. We need this because it'll drive attention. It'll do this. It'll do like
the point is
this is
to
our
get people talking about it. That's what
right.
It's all about.
The focus isn't to be good analysis. I think the focus is just to put content out. And this is why I don't do stuff like this because it only like it like I want to be an analyst. Like I don't want to be a content creator. This is just a means to an end, really. No offense to my audience, but this is my way to share my work. But the work is not the content. My work is the analysis work that I'm doing. So I'm not going to sit here and go, I have a confident read on a 2026 draft ranking right now, or a watch list for 2027, or here are the top 100 players under 22 out there in the world. Like, not only is that to me impossible to do, but 2, if I did make a good hard run at it, it would take forever to put that together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're looking at different age groups and different, you know, different leagues and everything.
Also, players are going to improve, and while that's going on, so your read is never going to be 100% correct.
No, and I mean, not you can never be 100% correct, but like it just like it's
so hard to keep up with just anything unless you unless you really, really focus on it. This year, I've even felt like my NHL knowledge has slipped a bit because I've been having a much greater interest in chess, playing a lot of chess games. So my focus, not that I don't watch NHL games, but I feel less confident this year than I have in previous years. So it's so ridiculous to me, the lists of 100+ players, and you just get nonsense. Complete. It's nonsense.
I mean, Seth Jarvis is considered one of the best Canadians in the world.
Yeah.
He's on the Four Nations team.
Yeah.
And he's behind guys like Levshinov, Seneca, like even I love Quinton Byfield. Yeah, Berkeley, like we love these players for sure, but you're betting on some magic beans in the future that puts Berkeley Catton as a more important player than a player who is a top 6 NHL winger, right? Like Jarvis is a great player, right? Like, so how do you accurately measure that? You can't. So to me, like, and it's also why I do my rankings in tiers. Like I try to stress to people, like
these are
the
in
specific
tiers as well,
order.
but still.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. Regardless, I don't know. It is what it is. You know, it got people talking. You know, how many comments does this article have? 940. 940 comments. Like this is the point. You know, and again, like for me, my goal is to do good analysis work, and my goal is to put as much work as I can into what I do. And just doing this draft class, just doing a draft class on any given year, I work all day, every day. Well, not every day, but like most days.
Mm-hmm.
And I still come out the other end being like, well, you know, you bring up a name to me and I'll be like, well, you know, I saw a bit of them, but like they didn't really move the needle for me. Like, this is why I don't think I'm king of the world. It's like if I were working for an NHL team, I'd want 3 clones of me so that everybody could sort of like mix and mingle and explore and poke around and have conflicting opinions and work out, you know, with a common philosophy, like work out, you know, get a bigger net, right? Because my level of confidence is only so big, because it's only physically possible to be so big. And so, you know, That's just how I see it. Um, I don't know. And of course, the top comment is about Lane Hudson, like everyone, and there's a
It's the
billion
most
comments about it.
liked.
Yeah. 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 And the second biggest. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And second. Yeah.
Oh,
anyway,
it's a
that's
list.
that.
That's
Yeah, it is a list of as I've been told by many NHL people over the years. When stuff like this comes out, they go, "It is a list of hockey players."
Hmm?
All right, it is a list of hockey players, right? Like, it's just what it is.
Yep.
All right. Any standouts from the OHL prospects game? I did not watch it. That game scares me, to be perfectly honest with you, right? Like, I don't really know if I would find any value in it. Just because like the level of competition, like it's an OHL, it's not even an all-star game, right? Like it's like just a bunch of undrafted players. And I don't know. I mean, I saw the top prospects challenge between the CHL and NTDP. I found that kind of valuable, but my takes from that aren't like changing my mind on much. Um, I'll check it out, right? But I don't really put a whole lot of weight into it. I know it was a testy game from what I'm told. It was pretty intense. But I was too busy setting up a 3D printer last night and cooking food to watch an OHL sub All-Star game. But I'll check it out at some point. How is Schaefer not the first pick? He was absolutely unbelievable against the USA on Team CHL, as well as off the charts against Finland. Genuinely think he could play in the NHL now. Well, I don't know about playing in the NHL right now, but more and more people are putting him at number one, right? Like Steven Ellis put him at number one. I had him at one. He is very quickly becoming the guy. If I look at my ranking tracker here, yeah, he's on average, he's number two, right? Behind Haggins. But in terms of a weighted average that I have now calculated based on the sources of where the rankings come from, he's looking like a tie with Haggins right now. So you got your wish, probably. Apparently, Simon Nemec voiced some displeasure on his situation in New Jersey, being on the farm system for his third straight year. What are your thoughts on his recent play? Well, I haven't seen much of him this year, but Nemec always is a guy, like, I would not have drafted Simon Nemec that high anyway. I think it puts an unreasonable set of expectations on the shoulder of any player that goes that high. Nemec was always a guy to me where his puck carrying was what made him special. His ability to skate with the puck, pass it, step into the offensive zone and do all those things. That's what was special to me. But bringing him immediately over to North America was a questionable decision, in my opinion. He played okay. And obviously it's disappointing to play in the NHL again earlier than I thought he would be in the NHL. It's disappointing to play there and then now you're back in the AHL. But in my, like, this is kind of where the psychology of player development comes into play, where you rushed him into this highly elevated, you put all this faith in him, right? Number 2 overall pick, immediately into the AHL at 18 years old, immediately into the NHL at 19 years old. It's not going the way you thought. And now he's at the level where he probably should be in the first place, right? Like, maybe you don't send him back to Slovakia for 22-23, but you find maybe some place that would take him in Sweden, or maybe even in the CHL to maybe get him used to that physicality and gain some confidence. Although he would have played for Cape Breton, which probably not a very good fit either. So for me, you maybe would have thought about leaving him in Europe for a little bit while longer on loan or something. And like, again, it's kind of like the Timothy Liljegren thing, right? Like,
who's his head coach?
Right. Well, but I mean, like, Liljegren was an AHL guy from 18 onwards. And by the time he was like 21 and he hadn't been in the NHL very much at all, people were going, man, is he like a bust? Like, is he not working out? Like, did Toronto whiff on a first round pick with Timothy Liljegren or whatever? Because he's still in the AHL. But it's like, if he were a CHL player, that would be his rookie season in the AHL. But he's already got 2 years under his belt in that league. So for Simon Nemec, like, if he were a CHL player, he'd be an AHL rookie this season. So, like, it's a matter of perspective, right? So if I'm coaching Simon Nemec, it's like, it's about the long game. And for me, the issue with Nemec was a pretty key issue at the time, where it was like, number one, passing the puck wasn't always a strong suit. He was much more of a carrier and very good at it. And defensively, he was getting beat a lot. Like his issues were very much defensive that were the concern for me. And he was very much like a fancy skating up the ice, northbound skating guy, which is fine. But I would have gone in a different direction at the draft. And I know the direction I would have gone. It would have been Logan Cooley at 2 for me. If especially for New Jersey, like it just felt like such a good fit. But I remember suggesting that, and Devils fans freaked out because they said they had too many centers. Which, fair enough.
You can never have too many centers.
And Cooley's playing on the wing now. No, he is a center. I don't remember.
He should be a center.
Yeah,
pretty sure.
All right. Well, regardless,
I'll go check, but I'm pretty confident he is the second line.
Yeah, but I mean, look, it's about the long game, and I'm sure that they're looking at him. Like they also, you want to put him in a position to succeed in the NHL, right? And when you're the New Jersey Devils and you've already got Dougie Hamilton and Luke Hughes, you've got
added Brett Pesce.
You added Brett Pesce. Jonas Siegenthaler's been a very good all-around defenseman as well. It's like, are you gonna bench a veteran to play a potentially kind of flawed 20-year-old? So to me, it's a matter of how you manage this. And like, I'm sure there's frustration with a whole bunch of players that we don't even hear about at their youngest ages. It's about how you manage it, right? So we'll see what happens. I wouldn't worry about it too much because he's only 20, and everybody says defensemen take longer to develop anyway. So like, where's the belief in that? So yeah, I don't know. I don't really. It's whatever.
Also, correction: Logan Cooley, number 1 center between Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller.
That's so gross. Wow.
That's where he's lined up at least.
Yeah. I watched a game on Anton Frundell and felt frustrated on how he got pushed around. I mean, fair enough. I do agree. I think that's a bit of the issue, but that is kind of the making plays under pressure, and the skill level are kind of what you're banking on. But again, I've seen him a bunch of times and I still haven't gotten a good read on him. Have you been able to see any of Roman Kanserov nearly a point per game in the KHL this year after half a point a game in the Gagarin Cup? Yeah, I like Roman Kanserov a lot. I've seen him over the years quite a bit. I was very pleasantly surprised to see him drafted where Chicago took him. He's an AJ guy. He's fast and skilled and gets up the ice quick and just a high pace, a high energy dude that I think could be a bit player in the NHL. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't give him a chance, especially on a team that's struggling offensively as much as Chicago is. His contract ends after next season, and I don't think there's any rush to put him in the NHL, but he's having an extremely good season. And whenever I went and actually looked at him because I hadn't seen much of him, and I know he's come up on this show a couple of times, and I really have liked what he's brought to the table, right? Like, I don't remember where I had him ranked, but to see him drafted at 44th overall, it's like, yeah, you're betting on fun, you're betting on skill, which I will always not be against. I need to know now because I feel, I feel like he's a guy who will make sense looking back on it, drafting him there. Yeah, like, where did he go? 44. Yeah, like that's around where I had him. I had him at 55, so a little bit higher than I had him ranked, but I liked him. I remember liking him. The fun factor was there. So we'll see. Thoughts on Hershey Bears legend Ethan Frank. Oh my God, what the hell? Ethan Frank. We were just talking about Ethan Frank during the show.
Before we were watching the Jackson LaCombe game we watched was against Washington. Yeah, and Will said, "Just Frank."
Yeah, I didn't even remember. I was like, "Who's this Frank guy?" But he scored a goal. So there's that. I don't know. I didn't really notice much of him because we weren't paying attention to him, but I don't know. But the Caps, I mean, I think the Caps just have a really well-oiled machine on the ice. Like, they quietly added a lot of good players over the last 12 to 18 months. Chychrun, Sandin.
Sandin, 18 months? I think Sandin might be longer.
You know what I mean, though? Like, over the last little while, they've just quietly added Mangiapane. Who else is on that team now? Logan Thompson has been excellent. Matt Roy. always a solid player. Dubois, getting Pierre-Luc Dubois basically for free.
Oh, they traded Darcy Kemp.
But they got Logan Thompson instead.
Yep.
So
it seems
like
to have
just
worked out for both
making,
teams.
Yeah, quietly making moves here and there, and it's working out. We'll see. But yeah. Potter and Kindle are finally getting respect. I don't know about respect on Kindle on Potter, but Kindle, I suppose. Potter, I think there's still a ways to go with him. Who do you see being the Memorial Cup favorites this year in the CHL? I would say the Everett Silvertips. I mean, their goal advantage per game on average is 2. Like they're winning games 3-1 on average. They're bonkers good. They're so good. I mean, Spokane added some real firepower, but Everett is just, they're a monster. They're a monster team. I'd say they're the favorite for me. London also is really good too. The London Knights, every time I see them, they're just a machine. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go real deep as well. Say the Bruins end up drafting 13 through 16. What big defensively inclined center with minimal offensive upside do they take?
Oh boy.
Well, I could.
That's a low.
Yeah. I don't think there's going to be one available. I don't know.
I know past doesn't really answer the question about what big defensive minded center they draft. You said Carter Bear would be a great Bruin.
He would be a great Bruin.
Yep. So if you're a Bruins fan, hope for that. Instead, let's give you something to actually hope for instead of, making yourself sad.
Centers sorted by hits. Brady Martin. Brady Martin could be a Boston Bruin with that pick. I could see that happening.
1-2 punch of Brady Martin and Dean Letourneau.
Jack Nesbitt. Jack Nesbitt could be that. Like if that's what you want. To answer the question, I would say Jack Nesbitt, especially. Ivan Ryabkin, but they don't draft Russians. I don't think Boston drafts Russians, but he is a little bit of a rat nowadays, so maybe there's something there. I don't know. But we'll throw Jack Nesbitt out there because it seems like people are thinking Jack Nesbitt's a first round pick. So, all right. Thoughts on Dmitry Isayev being the number 9th ranked player? Yeah, I mean, he's fun, but I'm going to have to take another look at him because I haven't seen him in a while. I'll actually jot his name down now. Yeah, there. It's on the list. We'll get there. You guys got a shout out on Locked On Sharks? Well, obviously, because Locked On Sharks are our boys. Me and JD, we go way back. Love JD, good dude. Loves the game, loves his team, loves his family. What could you want more?
I think Tony might have been on that show last night. Might be why.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
All right. Why do you think Nylander is struggling to score? He has a point in his last 7 games. Well,
it doesn't matter. William Nylander is just going to break through.
Sometimes they don't score. Yeah. Like how many points does he has? Yeah, he's a point a game this year. Like he's been a point a game guy or better for the last 4 seasons. So I don't know. Regression,
Or it's just that puck's not going in. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does.
That is, yeah.
And
yeah,
simple as that. Like the Leafs won 5 in a row before losing 3 in a row. And that's just kind of the way it goes sometimes. It's not a very great answer, unfortunately, but it's William Nylander. On his last. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. In the last 10 games, he has 1 goal on 22 shots. Like that's not sustainable. That's not how that works. But I don't know. I mean, the Leafs are weird this year. I don't know. I haven't seen too much of them, but all of those top guys are just, except for Mitch Marner, it seems, have been a little strange. A little bit.
Well, but with Matthews, it's because his start not great because he was injured. Now he's back and he's been ripping it.
Yep.
Marner's been fantastic throughout. John Tavares has been fantastic throughout, but now he's on IR.
Yep.
William Nylander goes through moments where he's the king of the world, and then there's some moments where he's not. But I get the feeling that Nylander. He's the coolest MFer on planet Earth, and he'll figure it out.
Yeah, I agree. Viggo Bjork breaking scoring records. Thoughts on him for 2026? I mean, I like him. I think he's an extremely smart and crafty playmaker. I'm gonna hold my tongue until I see him next year, but I do really like him. I wonder if he'll make your garden next year, the men's team, but really, really skilled, really creative, super smart kid. But that team also just in general is a wagon. Where do you think Milton Jastreen has offensive upside? I mean, his rush game is really good offensively. He's a great playmaker off the boards. Um, he has some really, really impressive moments. I've seen, a lot of them, and a lot of the time I'm kind of sitting around waiting for something to happen. But I'm just gonna pull up his profile here. He's the only guy named Milton. That helps. But yeah, like I've done a bunch of games on him at this point. Well, a bunch, but like a good sample on him at this point. He's been really good, especially offensively. Super, super efficient transition player offensively. Really, really good passer. Just a really good playmaker around the net. Generates half of his team's shot attempts. Just a really good player. Surprised that Roberto Leonardo Henriquez wasn't ranked for North American goalies. Well, doesn't he play in Alaska? Like, yeah, he plays for the Anchorage team. Maybe it's just too far for the guys to get up there, I don't know. But he is a good goalie. I don't know. I don't know enough. Again, David Phillips question. Why do you think the NHL doesn't track shots blocked or hits? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
They do that?
I don't think so.
They track blocks. They must be category. Fantasy.
Not in the OHL. For OHL?
Oh, I heard NHL.
No, OHL. The OHL doesn't track it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's probably because they don't have the resources to.
Yeah, like
it takes a lot of. Well, somebody's got to do that job, and somebody's got to get paid to do that job. And do they have the budget for somebody who wants to volunteer to do that?
Well, unlike all of the the way that they have it, it is much easier to track these statistics because everything they track, except for shots on goal, are post whistle. Like goals, assists, penalty minutes, all of that stuff, you can take your time and fill it out during the whistle period. Otherwise, you're just taking looking at shots. So every time someone wins a face-off, and then every time someone shoots the puck is when you're gathering data. So, it's much easier to do that than like all of the hits as well as shots and all of that stuff. So it's, being a guy who tracks a lot of data, I mean, yeah, it takes time. Like it takes time to keep track of all this stuff. So just focusing on shots and then stuff that happens where you can take your time during whistles, it's a lot easier that way, especially live at a hockey game. Thoughts on Ilya Protas with his production? I want to know if he's actually that good. I mean, he's very big and very strong. I like Ilya Protas a lot. I liked him last year. He got better and better as the year went on. He was one of the fastest risers on my board last year. I think he's been better in Windsor than I thought he would be. But, I feel like he's a pretty easy to project sort of bottom six winger, maybe a third line winger, but he's got some skill to him as well. Yeah, I mean, Washington quietly had a pretty good draft last year. I mean, I didn't really like the Parasak pick, but outside of that, they had a pretty good group. I mean, Mowgli probably wouldn't have been the guy I go with either, but I see it. And Protas, yeah, he's a really good player. I like him. I don't know if it's like, elite, but good physical guy, good physical specimen. I like Medvedev, but I was surprised. Okay, I mean, again, David Phillips, help us out here. What do you think the OHL does for Noah Powell's long-term game and potential? Noah Powell, I mean, that's a poll. I mean, he's gonna score goals, like, well, he has 2 assists in 2 games. But I mean, like leaving college to play in the OHL, not always the best sign, but he's a guy who is physical and he shoots the puck really, really well. So I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him to really give you a good answer, but he'll be a good addition for Oshawa. Like, he's not a net negative at all. That team got a lot better. You know, they added him and Wong, and I believe there are others that they've added recently. So they're gonna do just fine. They're doing just fine. Demidov, another 3 points today. Also 17 games under 10 minutes of ice time for no reason. I don't know if that's good or not. I mean, I mean, there's a lot of talk about Ivan Demidov's ice time, and like, I don't know, like,
still scoring.
he's scoring, yeah. Like, he's not getting worse, right? Like, that's the concern, right? Is like, oh, he's not playing enough, so he's not going to be good. It's like, well, he's good, he's just not playing a whole lot, and I don't know, like, maybe the coach sees things away from the puck or in the defensive end where they're going, I can't trust you for 20 minutes a night, right? Like, I can't throw you over the boards over, like, I don't even know who their top used players are. But the thing is, like, at this level, these levels and everything, like, people go, well, what about these guys who are playing 30 seconds a night? And it's like, well, sometimes in those leagues, guys are mandated to have young teams are mandated to have young players on the team, and the coaches don't trust them enough. So they bench them for almost the whole game. And then they go, okay, just skate for one shift in the third period. It's really dumb that they do that, but like, that's the way it is because the job is to win games. So the coach's job is to put guys on the ice who are going to win games. And does Ivan Demidov help the KHL team win games? Yes. You know, yeah, of course. But I don't know. Like, what do you want to, like, people, like, he's still good. He's not getting worse because he's not playing much. And like, it's like he's not hyped up enough. So let's like complain about his ice time too. It's like, I don't know, just appreciate it for what he is. He's really, really friggin' good. He's sick. He's gonna be great. You know, and this is all kind of what I expected since last season. I don't know. Any thoughts on Hillstrom and Helene? I mean, Helene, I think, is a huge long shot. Small, not very fast or mobile. I don't know. Long-term project, but I wouldn't probably draft him. And Hillstrom, I really liked. Smart, speedy, effective, just eats minutes, looked good in the SHL, didn't look out of place there. I ranked him relatively high. Where does Ivan Demidov go in this draft? I feel third behind Schaefer and Higgins. I probably would put him second. Like, Schaefer, Demidov, Misa, Higgins. Demidov is sick. He's gross. Have you seen Axel Hillstrom? No. Are they related to Axel F, the artist? Axel Hillstrom. Oh, I mean, he's a 2008 playing under 18 hockey in Sweden. I have not seen that guy at all. Is Martone getting underrated a bit because he's not a flashy player? I mean, he is flashy. He's got flash. I don't think he's getting underrated. I mean, like, he's one of the 5 best players at his age group in the world. Like, you can't get much more rated than that, especially in a group with guys like Schaefer and Misa and Higgins in there. I don't know. If someone likes him more than Misa, I see why. You know, it's like, but I don't think it's like cut and dry. He's way ahead of where he is, according to people. Gudis, Gudis might be the Ducks' worst defenseman this year. I mean, he's not amazing. He wasn't. Gudis is a good example of the type of defenseman that I don't value a ton in the draft. You watch a couple of games of Radko Gudis, and that's you can see why for me. Like, it just the
kind of funny because they have Radko Gudis with Jackson LaCombe on the top pair, and second pair it's Pavel Mintyukov with Jacob Trouba.
That's what it is. That's the strategy.
That's the strategy. They have punishers, guys who do.
Yep.
One of those punishers is a garden gnome. He looks like a garden gnome.
He does. I know he does.
Does.
He looks a lot like a friend of mine too. It's weird. Like, every time I see it about my buddy, he has the same beard, same face. Like, it's weird. It's creepy. But he's not Radko Gudis. I'm not friends with Radko Gudis. Any Finnish prospects to be excited about this year and next? I mean, there's a couple. Like, I'm intrigued by Max Westergaard, but I don't think I'd draft him. Yasu Mensinen, I think, is kind of good, but I wouldn't draft him. Lassi Bullius is a good upside swing, I think. There was a couple of I watched the Finnish under 18 team over the holidays a little bit, and there was a couple of guys for next year that I jotted down that I just I'll find it here in a sec. Yeah, a couple of 08s and late 07s I thought looked pretty good on that team. Was it Eunice Rajala was the one that sounds familiar? And Jeremy Virtanen. Let's see. Yeah, I think it was Eunice Rajala and Jeremy Virtanen. I think those were the two guys that I thought were pretty good. Samu Alalauri was an 08 on that team, and I don't remember him much, but I don't know. There's a couple, but Finland has not really blown my mind. I mean, Yuri Sumervori is kind of interesting, I suppose. I haven't seen him in a while. Ata Yoki is a kind of guy that I kind of like as well. Like pretty lanky, but got some skill. Like I was kind of surprised to see him ranked as high as he was on Central Scouting at 20. But he's been solid this season. I would love to see him in Liga. That's the next thing for me. I just finish under 20 guys that don't play in Liga. Like it's a risk to me. But Ate Yoki has the best birthday of the year. So that must mean he's good.
Yes, and if his name was William, he'd have the best name as
yeah.
Wouldn't he?
Yeah. Exactly.
Bias.
Thoughts on the Stadium Series jerseys? Oh, I haven't seen those.
Typing and
yeah. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Okay. I mean, I love the Columbus one right away. Detroit, I think, looks pretty good. I like it.
Oh, the helmet.
Oh, no, I don't like the helmet. No.
I do not like the helmet.
No on the helmet. But I love that Columbus jersey.
I love the cannon. Cannon's cool.
You know what? And honestly, like, I think Columbus, like,
their first outdoor game.
Yeah, it is. I think Columbus is kind of overdue for a look switch up and
rebrand.
Yeah, like the cannon, I think is a really cool logo and a cool look. I'd be down if they did that. The Red Wings, yeah, the helmets are kind of weird, but it's a good Red Wings look, you know? It's pretty nice.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I definitely like the Columbus stuff.
Yeah.
Find Detroit, honestly, I just like the current jersey. I think they always try and, like, from my experience with it, do something that text on it.
Yep.
Or a giant letter D.
Yeah.
And the winged wheel is sick.
Oh yeah, huge. Love it. Who are you most curious to watch in the second half of the year? I would say continuing to convince myself that I'm not crazy about Caleb Desnoyers is going to be important. Roger McQueen is going to be huge for me. I mean, he is big, but like he's going to be a huge one to keep an eye on. I mean, I'm going to take another run at Jack Nesbitt because it feels like he's going to be a first-round pick at this point. People are talking about it. Okay, so I'll have to check that out as time goes on. Just, I don't know, like, just keeping an eye out for all kinds of guys. How Ivan Ryabkin's season goes from here. I really liked Jimmy Lombardi when I watched him, so I'm going to check back in on him at some point. Simon Wong for the rest of the season with Oshawa. That'll be very interesting. I should go and get one of his games that he's played there recently, maybe after the weekend. Yeah, there's a few, you know. Logan Hensler as well, and Sasha Boumediene, like how the back half of their freshman year goes. That'll be interesting. But yeah. What 08's national team do you think will be fun and who's underwhelming? Okay, so you mean the US team? I like Sammy Nelson, Victor Plant, I think. Let me see. There's actually a couple of decent guys on that team that I kind of like. Not that should be like a surprise. It's the best American players in the country. Yeah, Victor Plant, Lucas Zajic, Sammy Nelson. There was a defenseman that I liked too. Was it Luke Scherer? Abe Barnett? Maybe Luke Scherer. Um, all those guys I've liked here and there. Mikey Burchild is decent as well, but for me, Plant, Zajic, and Nelson are the guys that I've liked. Which NHL team is most impressive you have seen in your years of watching hockey? Oh boy.
I think last year's Florida team was really awesome. Don't know if they were necessarily impressive. Also, like the Colorado Avalanche team that won the cup, and like before they won the cup, I think was just so sick. I think that's why I'm so wired and geared to guys who play super fast. Just how fast and skilled and how much they just take the puck to you. They just go nuts in the offensive zone. Really, really push the pace. So those are teams that stick out to me as I were really impressed with, but I also have recency bias on my side.
Right.
Also, a bit younger than.
I have an easy answer.
Go for it.
Easy. The Detroit Red Wings from 1991 until 2012 were ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, especially the late 90s Detroit Red Wings. Like, I had a buddy that I grew up with whose uncle was Steve Yzerman, and so I was a huge Red Wings guy at that age, and so I watched a bunch of them, like the back-to-back Stanley Cups, winning it again in 2002, the rivalry with Colorado. They were fast, they were skilled. Like this, they're a great example of a team where I'm going, this is what works. Like, they are dominant because it works. Like, they had Chris Osgood in net, right? Like, not a Hall of Fame goaltender, but he won a lot because the team in front of him, all they did was just score and score and score. I wish that this list just had the number of goals they scored in a given season, but I wouldn't be surprised to see if they were the best NHL offensive team in every one of those years.
Also had some incredible European players.
Yeah. Well, they went ahead and got the Russians out of there, right? Like they were big on the Russians. Yeah. So they weren't the best offensive teams those years. They were second in 1998 scoring goals. But other than that, whatever. But like, you look at these rosters, man, like, yeah, they had some tough guys on the team for sure. Stu Grimson, Anders Eriksson was a pretty tough guy as well. He was young at the time though, but Vladimir Konstantinov, before he was in that car accident, he was just a bastard out there. Larionov, Kozlov, I mean, Fetisov, Sergei Fedorov, one of the most exciting players in the world. Former Toronto Maple Leaf legend Larry Murphy as well, sick. Like Brendan Shanahan was on those teams. Like they were just up and down good, with some great physical guys at the bottom end of the lineup, Mike Knubel, Chris Draper, Joey Kosher, but all of those guys could move. They were physical and they could move, and they were just a great set of teams to watch. I loved watching those teams.
They also, if taken for a lot of those years, had the benefit of no salary cap.
Well, yes, the salary cap didn't happen until 2005. So, and at that time, salaries were like higher than they are now for some of the NHL players. I think Sergei Fedorov was making like $12 million back in the 90s, which is insane.
It is insane.
But I'd say those teams.
Yep.
I mean, if you go on YouTube, you can see footage. I did this during the pandemic of actually watching the 80s Oilers, and that's just hilarious. But I wouldn't say they're the best team I've ever seen, just because the NHL in the 80s was bonkers. But the Red Wings in the 90s and early 2000s, I think definitely are up there.
I'd also be in the 2010 to 2015 weren't the nicest organ.
They were good,
but
they were. Yep. Okay, a lot of talk about Corey Pronman. Where does okay? We talked about Demidov slotting in this season. Yeah, I heard a lot about how chippy the game last night was. Porter Martone had a Gordie Howe hat trick. Like, fighting in a showcase game is always so crazy to me, but I guess scouts want to see that. Imagine Logan Cooley with Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. Yeah, that's what I was saying. But apparently they needed a defenseman, so they went and got one. Thoughts on the JT Miller situation? I don't know what's going on, and I don't really want to speculate. I it, I don't know. Sometimes when
just
things aren't
quickly,
going well, yeah.
because it looks like my mic might have cut out.
Oh,
I just want to see in the chat, am I better now? Sound better now, guys. It might take a while because there is a bit of a delay. I'd like to check in and see. Like, people are saying that my mic's choppy or catch what I said. Guess I'll wait a little bit, but continue with your thought, and we'll get feedback in a second.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't really have anything to really input on the JT Miller situation. I mean, I don't think you win a trade if you move him, and I don't think you win a trade if you trade Elias Pettersson. But I don't know what's happening there. I don't know. Maybe it's just media hype because Vancouver's season's not going as well as it did last year, but who knows? Chances Roger McQueen goes first overall, probably very slim, but higher than I think they are. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it would be absolutely nuts to draft a guy with a back injury who's 6'6", and you're hoping on physical development over the next 5 years, drafting him over guys like Higgins and Misa and Schaefer. And like Schaefer's a year younger too, almost a full year younger. So I don't know how you make that math work out in your head, but I think it's possible. Catton is averaging 1.8 points per game, 1.9, dominating with Crystal. Surprisingly, Mathis Preston was not traded to the Rockets in the trade. I mean, you don't see that kind of a trade happening very often, except for the Sarnia Sting trading Porter Martone for Ethan Del Nastro.
Bill's favorite trade of all time, baby.
Yeah. Anyway, but Mathis Preston, you probably like it would be like saying oh, who's a pending free, like I don't know, like last year it's like, oh, we got Steven Stamkos and we didn't have to give up Easton Cowan for him. It's like most teams don't trade top prospects like that generally. It just doesn't really happen in like rental trades, right? Like Crystal's not coming back next year. So he's gone. They get him for like 30 games in a playoff run. So it's not really reasonable to ask for a guy who's going to have an excellent season next year, may very well be back the year after and have another excellent season, an even better one. Like that's a lot of value that you're giving up. You may as well just say picks. Just take our picks, whatever, we don't care. And that's usually good enough. Like it doesn't really surprise me at all that wasn't the case. Have you seen Jordan Sharon? Yeah, a little bit here and there. He was actually recommended to me by someone, and I checked him out for a bit. And he's got some skill. I don't know if I draft him, but he's a fun to watch player, and I think he's the kind of player the Sioux kind of needed to add, but hasn't been tremendously productive. But he's all right. When people say they have questions about Mises' off puck game, what are they referencing? Because when I've seen him, I thought that's one of their biggest strengths. They're lying. I don't know. Like I think that it is one of his strongest points of his game. I think Michael Misa is one of the most well-rounded players at that age that I've ever seen. With one of the best feels for the game that I've ever seen. I can't answer your question because I agree with you, right? So have you seen Ben Danford play recently? Jake McCabe level of upside or Chris Tanev? I mean, I don't know about that.
Definitely not Chris Tanev. Chris
Yeah,
Tanev
like
is a special
maybe
breed of player.
like maybe a McCabe. Like if we're talking Toronto Maple Leafs, like he'll probably, like I think he's a fine bottom pair minutes eating dude who is a nice person. Like take that for what you will, you know. Somewhere between Jake McCabe and Simon Benoit, pushing Jake McCabe. I don't know, something like that. Which one of you two would be better as prime minister? Oh, me for sure.
Yeah,
me for sure.
I'm a little unfiltered.
Yeah, no. AJ would get canceled in about 2 weeks, for sure.
But I get canceled.
I don't know. Calling someone naughty names in Parliament or something.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Question period. AJ just gets up there and goes, "Mr. Speaker,
you're an idiot.
My counterpart on the other side of the aisle is a moron and has
for implying such a thing."
Yes, for implying such a thing about me. Blah blah blah. No. Probably me.
Or maybe I'd win because I'm more of an open.
Well, yeah, you'd get the anti-woke mob voting for you before
What?
they'd vote for me, I
Oh,
think.
oh, the anti-woke.
Yeah,
Okay.
you would get the anti-woke mob voting for you faster than they'd vote for me for sure.
But I don't know. I'm not like.
No, but you would appeal to them more, even though I feel like whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's not get into that.
Yeah.
It's already messy enough. Thoughts on Mikkel Eriksson? Skilled, fun. I don't know if it's enough to be an NHL player. Like I think he could be a good European pro. You know, fun to watch, talented kid. If he gets picked, great. If he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised. Gudis has been horrendous. Yeah, he was not great. Any what?
The enabling. This is why.
Oh yeah, this is why. Yeah. Any new thoughts on Fabian Lysell? 4 points in his last 5 games. He's +3 with 8 points in his last 10. No,
Still good. He's still
this is
good.
this is the whole point of the whole show. We find guys that we like, and through thick or thin, we go, I like this guy. And if people say all of a sudden they suck, if we agree, then we agree. But on Fabian Lysell, it's like, hold on to that boat, go down with the ship, you know, Titanic style. But he seems to be staying afloat just fine. Maybe he's not playing with Jeffrey Viel anymore. I don't know. Most unique skill set draft eligible player. Oh boy.
Does the wildest things. Like you can do things that nobody else can, even if they're not particularly credible.
I mean, there's not many defensemen that are like Schaefer. Ivan Fomin. No.
Yes. Being that small and that good.
I don't really know the answer to that. It's a good question.
It's me.
Once in a while, maybe Van Sagi. Like he's big and strong, but sometimes the skill stuff he pulls off is crazy. Cullen Potter has had some disgusting stuff I've seen this year, but nothing like truly unique. I'd say Schaefer might be the best answer. Misa just in a tactical way, maybe, but like flashy wise, I wouldn't put him there.
No, but it's unique. It doesn't necessarily.
Yeah, it is unique. Yeah, it is unique. All right. What else do we have here? Should the Leafs trade Marner for Lysell?
No,
yes, exactly.
no.
Yes, they should.
No, they should not. No, they should.
A lot of people love the Wings helmets. I mean, I'm sure a lot of Detroit Red Wings fans love the helmets.
Why? You want a big stripe
it's a
down
play. Okay, so it's a play on the University of Michigan stuff, which fair enough. It doesn't. I don't like it. I can still not like it. You know, it's like I get okay. True. I like the Michigan one. I don't like the white. If it weren't white, I feel like it would be a bit better. But something about it, like, because at least Michigan, it's like blue helmets with a gold stripe. It's like there's some contrast and whatever, but red and white is like really, really stark.
I don't know. It just kind of looks dumb. Looks like, you know what it looks like? You know those like mini, looks like one of those attachments to a motorcycle. You know, like those or a car,
sidecar,
little sidecar. Yeah. It looks like what you'd wear if you were in a sidecar. That's what I saw as soon as I saw that.
Yep. Where are we here? A lot of talk about the jerseys. Yeah, the Columbus one is sick. Yeah, and the Wings. Yeah, it's hard to screw up a Detroit Red Wings jersey, right? Like it's pretty hard. Is Drew Hockley the best name in this draft? It's a good one. I mean, Carter Bear is a good one. I mean, Little John Mooney, also a good one.
Probably.
Yeah. Lev Katzen, you know, like classic. Henry Bruštevec, another Bruštevec, like that's fun too, but Drew Hockley's pretty good. Oh, okay. So with best team, he meant in a specific season. I would probably go. I don't know. Maybe the 1996 Detroit Red Wings, like that team that almost went to the Cup and lost to Patrick Waugh and the Colorado Avalanche. Like That team also was really good. The Colorado Avalanche team that year was also insane.
I guess I can
Philippe?
quickly.
What? Yeah.
I think they missed my follow-up to the answer that I threw in the Chicago Blackhawks from
right.
2010 to 20 time. I said they weren't the nicest organization, but
yes,
very good team.
Yeah. Thoughts on Philippe Myers? I really like the offense he's brought to the defensive group. Well, you can take this away because I have not watched a Leaf game in a long time.
He's fine from what I've seen. Better than Connor Timmins, and he's better than OEL. I'm not fans of either of those players, and Myers is just fine.
Okay. Thoughts on the Hyman family and buying the OHL's Bulldogs? Well, the Hyman family is both famous and infamous in the Greater Toronto area with their goings on in the world of hockey. They definitely are one of those families that moved heaven and earth to put an NHL or put their kid in the NHL. You know, I mean, of course, there was that infamous social media post talking about how it's great that Zach Hyman's scoring so many goals, but because of his family, it means less or whatever. But that's what's out there on him. But regardless, I mean, look, number one, I'm all for stability in the sport. So Zach Hyman brings stability to that organization because he's not going to run out of money. The Bulldogs are a good brand. They are a profitable team as far as I know. I don't know if they're staying in Brantford. I forget. But once the renovations are done in Hamilton, that should be a really good place to play, especially if they can sort of get downtown Hamilton a little bit more well put together, I would say. And I think they have a lot of potential. I think Hamilton is an enormous potential for a lot of different things right now in Ontario. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, I'm all for it, right? Like, you know, it's all good with me, you know. Will Zach Hyman's kids play on the Bulldogs one day? Maybe, but whatever. I don't care.
Hell yeah. Oh, it looks like my mic's working because responding to me saying Philip Myers is not better than OEL. Yes, he is. OEL is not good. OEL is terrible. Okay? Every time OEL gets an opportunity to shoot the puck, he does it. Doesn't matter. What does he bring to the game other than, oh, me get puck, me shoot puck? Nothing. I don't care that he's played 1,000 games. He's making $3.5 million. You know who else is making $3.5 million? Viewers of the show from last year will know or might have a clue as to who I'm going to reference, but it's Sean Walker. It's Sean Walker, the guy I was begging this team to add. I do not like OEL because not very good at defending. Find that he's fairly soft in his own end and gives up the puck a fair bit. And every time the puck comes to him, like I said, he just shoots and kills play. Just kills it. I don't care that OEL has won a cup. He won a cup on a fantastic team where he crushed third pair minutes play against the bottom end of the bottom end of a team. That's it. Like he'd play against the third and fourth liners a lot of the time. Would have favorable situations. Being played with Morgan Riley at times throughout this year, which is not a good idea.
Maybe the Leafs just need to go out and get Patrick Maroon at the trade deadline.
No.
He's won 3 cups. He's 3 times as good as OEL.
Maybe. I'm just not an OEL fan. Not my type of defense.
Okay. Where are we here?
I think that's
someone
it.
mentions. That's it. Oh, OEL. Oh God. What's your actual biggest hockey hot take? I don't.
That Alex Ovechkin is the most overrated player. He's a great player.
That is a hot take. But, that is. Yes.
But like Evgeny Malkin. And I know, like, he scores a ton of goals. I'm not gonna take away he being one of the all-time greats. Just I think he's given a lot more credit than he really. Like, a lot of his career has been just be at the outside the defensive zone, touch, like, get a puck touch, and go up the ice and just stand still and wait and shoot. But in his prime, absolutely insane, incredible player. Probably wore himself out because he threw a ton of hits. Still a great player, though.
I don't know if this is like a massive hot take, but I am of the belief that the greatest player of all time is not Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah,
I think the greatest player of all time is Mario Lemieux. That's my vote. Connor McDavid is pretty close. I mean, considering the era people play in, Connor McDavid is probably getting there.
Mm-hmm.
But Mario Lemieux, like, if he didn't have the injury and sickness riddled career that he had, I bet he is. It is a discussion, but I don't really care about that kind of thing. Mario Lemieux, I remember when I was a kid watching him, and he was like unstoppable in an era where offense in the NHL was on the decline. Even when he was older and coming back from, like, he came back from cancer and scored, what was it, 37? I can't 37 points in 22 games or something like that. Was that season? When was that? I need to check. So yeah, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in 1993, January 1993. Right. So he, at that point in the season, had 160 points in 60 games and had 18 points in the playoffs that year while having Hodgkin's lymphoma. Came back the next season playing 22 games, had 37 points, then didn't play in the lockout season, came back and scored 161 points, 122, then didn't play for 3. He retired. He retired in 1997 at how old? 32. Came back and was almost 2 points a game in 2000, 2001. Like, Mario Lemieux was insane. And if his career had gone any better, meant like health wise, I feel like he's the one that's on TNT, you know? We'll see about Connor McDavid, because I think Connor McDavid is spectacular.
It's also really difficult to give that to, like, who's the greatest of all time, because people's definition of what great means is different.
Right. I mean, the other thing too is I'm a big believer in involvement in your team's offense. And I believe that Mario Lemieux is the only NHL player of all time who ever was involved in half of his team's goals on average in a season. And that was in the early 90s when the Penguins won the cup. Like, him and Yager together were amazing. And I'm pretty sure, let's see, I think 1992 was the year this happened. Yeah. So he had 131 points in 64 games. Chew on that. Kevin Stevens had 254 penalty minutes in 80 games, but 123 points. And then it drops to 87. So he had almost twice as many points as the third highest scoring guy on the team in 64 games. Like, it was insane. So to me, like, I always look at Gretzky, and he changed the game. Gretzky probably is the first modern NHL hockey player, like modern-ish era hockey player from the 80s into the 90s. He changed the game for sure. But Lemieux was just insanely dominant in an era where it was kind of tough to be that level of dominant. Also, he just was injured a lot.
Wayne Gretzky got traded, and the Oilers still won the Stanley Cup the next year.
Yeah. Yep. It's true.
Which is crazy.
Before we go, what do we got? Top 5 GOATs of hockey. I mean, Gretzky, Lemieux, McDavid, Crosby, or I would say
Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Matt Sundin, and
underrated honorable mention, Connor McDavid. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
or not Paul Coffey. Sorry, Paul Coffey. Honorable mention. I love Paul Coffey, but anyway, what was yours?
I was just memeing. I just listed all the Leafs of today and Matt Sundin.
Yes, got it.
Because I don't care at some level. Like,
I do.
Why does it matter? And there's a comment about it. Like, you do have to separate eras because it's different. It is different.
But that's part of my evidence for Lemieux is when you do scale for the level of offense in the league at the time, Lemieux was better. Like, Lemieux was more productive. He just didn't play as much because he was injured and got cancer and retired.
Like,
anyway.
I always think, and I'm also biased because I wasn't around for Gretzky or Lemieux. Well, a little bit of Lemieux, but I wasn't like consciously paying attention.
Toddler, yeah. I remember Lemieux. I remember when he got cancer. I was a little kid and I remember that. And it was huge news. Like it was like, holy crap, like one of the biggest names in the sport who already had been dealing with health issues got cancer. Like, oh my God. Anyway.
There's one more question.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna head out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 forwards for the Habs in the first round. What about Bear, Martin, or O'Brien? I mean, if you want big physical guys, those are the guys you get. I mean, if it's Bear and O'Brien, I'm down. But it also just depends on where their picks are. It's hard to say.
Okay, one more came in.
What's going on with the NTDP kids? Seems like a poor crop. Well, Cullen Potter left, and yeah, it's not an amazing group this year. This happens. I mean, it's correlated with the number of registrations by birth here in the US, so it's a little lower. I mean, not every NTDP team is or will be that, Caulfield, Zegras, Hughes, Cooley, Smith, Perreault, guys. I mean, I had Perreault a little lower anyway, so whatever. But regardless, this kind of thing happens. I mean, it's a bit of a soft year anyway, period. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a thing that happens sometimes. Okay. Well, on that note, we're going to call it. Thanks for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, we're gonna call it a day. Again, we're brought to you by Fanatics. You can use the link in the chat or scan the QR code in the video window, and you'll give us a kickback on anything you buy in the store. Puck Preps Hockey as well as your destination for NCAA and CHL content. If you're interested in the CHL Draft or guys going to the NCAA, you want to follow commitments, that's the best place to do it. And of course, you can get a subscription at Scouching.ca. Really get access to our Discord server, as well as plenty of cool tools like our prospect tracked data that I track, visualization tools for other data, drafted prospect data tables and undrafted prospect data tables and blah, 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 blah. So check that out over at Scouching.ca. And on that note, any parting words, AJ, before we go? Because I'm off to make my pilgrimage to the grocery store after this.
Yeah, I'll let you do that quick. I know you want to get back for something. Go Leafs, go. Not sure if they're the Cup more, so I'm just putting that out now because it's mid-January and that's when I picked the Florida Panthers to win. So, yeah. But Leafs for Cup anyways. Good night.
It's worth a shot.